on the SFRAW podcast. And today I have a wonderful guest, Elin Weber. She's from Sweden, and she used to be an SFRAW member and lived in San Francisco. I'll let her tell her story, but maybe introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about, how we met and your California story, and then also about what you do and what you're doing there now in Sweden, your home. Yeah.
Thank you, Kasie. I'm so happy to be part of this. I'm happy you invited me, so thank you. It's actually really interesting because I defended my thesis in ethology 2015, so I'm an ethologist. And after that, immediately after that, I was offered a postdoc position at Stanford University. And that was, of course, really exciting to go to California. But then I also had a dog. And I really wanted to bring my dog if I was going to be away for 1 or 2 years. And that was one of my main concerns when going was actually how do I get hold of good food? Because I didn't know.
You were already raw feeding there.
Yeah,
Correct?
I was raw feeding since some years back, and I started looking after we decided I was going. I started looking to see if I could find a place to buy the raw food and get her good nutrition. So then I found SFRAW just through the internet, and so once I was in California, I took contact. So that's basically where it all started, with contact with SFRAW just before I even went to California and San Francisco. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, and we became very friends. So I really enjoyed your being here. I was very sad when you left, but it's very you and your husband as well, Robert. So you're a lovely family. So now you're back home, and you've been there for a while, and you've been posting on Instagram these amazing. You have your company, Dogveda, and you also have just your daily practices and what you do with your dogs. And I thought that would be really of interest to a lot of our members because, one, you're a longtime raw feeder like I am, and you're also somebody who is interested in natural behavior of animals like I am. And we also agree on a lot of things when it comes to the husbandry and the care of the animals, and a lot of the things that we share, like getting out into nature and the things that we promote for people to have healthy relationships with their animals, and also to build health and vitality and a good immune system in our animals, is things that you're practicing and posting on your Instagram. So I thought, oh, it'd just be so cool to have you share that with us. And we've done a couple of trials to record while you are walking in the forest, but it was difficult because the reception was poor. So we thought we'd try this format instead. And I look forward to seeing some of the footage because I find it very interesting, and I think everybody else will too. So maybe just tell us a little about what you do and your philosophy, and then we can start looking at some of the footage you have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, as Kasie said, I have a really big interest in animal behavior. I always had a big interest in animal behavior.
Obviously, you have a PhD, so
and,
big interest,
exactly. And I didn't even know that you could work with ethology like as your profession when I started. So I was really happy when I realized that it could actually be my profession. So it's, and all the parts of like animal behavior and the relationship between animals and humans and how we actually live together with a totally different species, it's kind of fascinating in itself. And how we manage that. And what I find interesting, what has been my focus really from the start, is there are a lot of behavioral problems when you have animals. Both, I mean, dogs and all kinds of animals develop different abnormal behaviors because of the way we house them and keep them. And I always wonder why. That's like my main question as an ethologist, is why. I think that's a very important question, because a lot of focus on dog training is about trying to change the behavior, trying to change the dog, trying to get rid of the bad behavior. But I always want to know, well, why is the dog performing that bad behavior? Is it bad for us, or is it bad for the dog?
For us? Usually it's, and I usually tell people that when they get a puppy, it's their job to teach the couple of things. I mean, there's a lot of things, but primarily that the world is safe. So they don't, they're not, so things are safe and they feel safe. and making sure that you're setting them up to feel safe,
Exactly.
not putting them in circumstances where they're not safe. And then the other thing is that they need to learn to live with us, with a different species, and to learn
Exactly.
to be in the human population, in the human society.
Yeah.
That's going to mean that they need different behaviors than what's natural to them, so that they have to,
Exactly.
that's your job, is to teach them to do that, you know,
Yeah.
and to be
And
able to
to
come,
guide them.
yeah, and to come when they're called. Because if you're
Yeah.
going to be off leash, that's going to be
Yeah.
the single most important thing. You want to make sure that you're the best thing in the whole world to them, and you're like the biggest, most important thing, so that they will come back to you. Like, you're going to be able to hopefully be more exciting than that thing they want to run off and maybe get hit by a car or something terrible happening. So so those are the things. But I mean, they do have, dogs are not primates. We are primates, and we have different body language and different ways of communicating. And you know, people say, oh, I wish dogs could talk, and I'm like, oh, they're talking all the time.
Exactly.
You know, they're talking all the time.
We just have to learn to listen. That's the big key. And I mean, of course, when living in California, I experienced there are a lot of things that are different from how we keep animals in Sweden or dogs in Sweden. There are a lot of training methods or training equipment, I would say, used in the US that is not legal in Sweden. So there are big differences, and it's also big differences when I spoke to people and the way because normally in Sweden we're not allowed to keep the dogs at home like all day. There are regulations around that, and we're not allowed to keep dogs in crates inside.
Oh, really?
No, that's
you guys
not
don't
legal.
use crates at all?
No, not in the same way.
I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah,
because
so
I use crates, and I think people like their den if it's their place they really like.
I mean, you can use a crate, just not close the door. And you can use it during, like, if you're away on training or during competitions or stuff. I mean, if it's a restricted time and there's a specific situation, you are allowed to. But you cannot, for example, leave your dog at home in a crate. That's not according to the law. So there are a lot of things that are different, which is interesting, and it's also gives you a perspective and different way of thinking.
For sure.
So when I started talking to people, you know, more the way I'm thinking about dog behavior and natural behaviors and trying to integrate that into our daily life and really fulfill their behavioral needs, I realized that a lot of people were really interested because it was kind of new for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So one of the things that we were talking about is like how to, you know, develop those natural behaviors in your animals in the context that would be safe and would work with our society and living with humans. And also like just the importance of connecting with nature. And we were going to talk about grounding and the negative ions and the microbiota and all these kind of interesting things that come into play that will help reduce stress and increase their immune system and promote their health. So what are the things that like that you find on a daily practice or a regular practice that you would recommend, like the kind of main things that you would recommend for people to do, and maybe give us an examples of that? We can talk about it as far as making sure that they do get, like I say, you know, exposure to nature every day, you know, feet on the ground, ideally in trees, around trees or at the ocean. We're near the ocean, so that makes it easy for people here. But, you know, that a lot of people, if they have a dog and they live in an apartment building in the city, they're just walking them around on the sidewalks. You know, the dog's not going to ever build up a healthy immune system if they're not able to be exposed to nature and grounding and earthing. In my opinion, it makes it really hard. So what are the things, like, you know, for example, you live in the forest or near the forest, so that's very different than it would be for someone living in a city. But for somebody who's living, like you saw people living in an urban area like San Francisco, what are the things you would recommend for people, and what do you like your like primary things that are important for a dog?
I mean, I would actually start with the human. Just as a first thing, I would just say, when you are with your dog at least once a day, make sure that you are really present. Don't be on your phone, don't be somewhere else in your mind, don't stay at work when you're home, I mean in your mind. At least one walk a day, just be present. It makes such a big difference. So usually I do this like small exercise for people before they even go for a walk. I'm just saying, like, take the leash in your hand, just stand there, take some few deep breaths, and just feel the leash in your hand. just feel yourself. You can, identify all the thoughts that are running around in your head. You don't have to stay with the thoughts, but you can just know that, okay, they are there. I know that I'm thinking about a lot of stuff right now, but that's okay. Now I'm just gonna take a walk, and I'm just gonna let my thoughts go away for a while and just be somewhere else, while I'm just gonna be here with my dog. I'm just gonna feel my feet against whatever I'm walking on and just be present. I mean, if it's 10 minutes or if it's half an hour, just take a small moment every day to just really be present, and try to see if you can see a difference in your dog, because many dogs really appreciate that you are present, because so many dogs are out walking with someone holding a leash and they are somewhere else.
They're not connected.
They're not connected. And I think that's actually where you should start. And of course, if you are in nature, it helps, because it helps us to
It helps a
connect.
lot. Yeah, that's so important, and I know,
Yeah.
like I said, like even living in the city, I mean, we're really lucky in San Francisco. There's a lot of open spaces, and we bought our house because there's a park. I mean, that was like we were trying to find a place for the dogs that didn't have a lot of stairs for my Great Danes and was next to a park. Those were like that was pretty much it. That's all we cared about in the house. We didn't have a garage, we don't have a view. There's a lot of things we don't have, but we really needed those things. And everybody values different things, of course, but even if you live in an urban area, to seek out those places and to try and incorporate that in your day, because that everyday exposure to the outdoors is something that's very healing for both humans and for dogs.
And I mean, I know that a challenge for you is that you have a lot of poisonous plants in nature, so you have to take care, don't walk around and get foxtails in your feet and everything. We don't have that, luckily. We have a lot of ticks and other things, but we don't have that many poisonous plants. But you have the beach as well, so just walking barefoot, letting your feet just feel the sand underneath. I mean, that's just amazing. Even if it's just 5 minutes, it's just amazing for your whole system. And I think when we start to connect more with ourselves, it also helps connecting with our dogs. So for me, that's an important part as well, to actually start taking care of ourselves to be able to take care of our dogs.
And that parlays really nicely with a lot of, before we got our puppy together, Bronco and I had us go through the dog walking academy. So we got certified as dog walkers together. And so we were on the same page on things. One of the things that it was a real important part that they put into this was making sure that you're setting the tone for the walk, or setting the tone for the whatever exchange you're going to have. You're going and picking up the dog from a house, and you're leaving the house, and you're going through, and you're getting them in the car. And when you get every single step along that way, you're making decisions, and your energy, and also like just every little, like doing it without really in consideration for the dog's needs, but also like just being really intentional about everything. If you just rush through all of that and you don't really make it intentional, it can set up, I mean, if you want a rowdy, crazy walk, that'll be fun. You could do like a crazy, out of control, like a crazy walk. But if you're hoping, and with me, I have dogs that outweigh me, and I usually have more than one. I've always done that, because making sure that they're not over the moon excited and we're just getting I'm getting knocked over, that's not going to be okay. So just like asking them to also, like you're saying, to breathe and take a moment. You can do that, but you can also ask that of your dog, to ask them to do a behavior that they know and that's easy for them.
Exactly.
Like ask them, like, for example, when my Great Danes were puppies, they, I would sit down to put shoes on. The minute mom sits down, they're like, yeah, she wants to play and wrestle on the ground with me. And I'm like, no, not really. so, just to make, because if that was before the walk, I didn't want that to set the tone for the whole walk. So I would ask them to wait over on their beds, and they were really good about it. And as long as they were waiting, my shoes were getting put on, and they knew that as long as they waited, the shoes were kept getting put on. And that meant the next step was going to happen. The next, they know, as long as these things are happening, that everything's going to be moving along in the course of the events that happen to open the door and to get the keys out and to go to the car and all the things that they want to have happen. They're able to do it in a more controlled way, where they're, more peaceful about it, instead of just like rollicking through. And then that changes the whole character of your walk, can be much more peaceful and not, uncomfortable, or have sort of situations where I guess people, I don't know, what would you think about this? Like they talk about dogs going over threshold, and if they're over threshold, like overstimulated or overexcited, trying to keep them under threshold, so that all of those little steps along the way, breathing that you would take and to be with your dog, but also asking them to sort of do some self-control, before their walk, into the walk, it kind of helps like set the tone of the whole event. Do you
really
find that as well, or what is your position on that? Yeah.
I definitely think a lot about these. I don't think a lot about it, but I think it's important with the thresholds you're mentioning, that sometimes it's so many triggers, for example, during a walk. If you look at dogs that have problems, for example, meeting other dogs, maybe the first dog is okay, the second dog is okay, but then the third dog, your dog is just barking and behaving in a way that is really stressful for everybody. And that's when the dog suddenly came over its threshold, because it was stressors, and people maybe don't recognize that there were stressful events. But then eventually it's like, okay, the third dog was over the threshold. But as you say, if you do all these practices and you are calm in yourself, and you know that, okay, my dog needs guidance in this, my dog needs to have some certain control in this situation. If you work on those certain things, you give the animal more control. And that's kind of universal, that one really important way of giving animals a better welfare and giving them lower their stress and everything is to give them more control over their situation. So giving them, as you describe, like different keys that they know, okay, when I put this on, this is going to happen, and if you wait here, I'm going to do this, and then you can go with me, or whatever. Just gives them more control over their life and their situation, and it will also help them cope with stressful situation and triggers and stuff like that. So I think it definitely helps, and I think it's important to be aware. Oh, now my little son is home. I think it really helps people if they are also aware of these thresholds, because sometimes you can think about it as a glass of water, like you can fill it a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, but all of a sudden the glass is full and it's gonna spill over. And it's the same with stress. I mean, you can cope with a certain amount of stress, but then you reach the limit
Threshold.
and then you can't cope. The threshold. and also, no, I was just going to connect back to, I think, that part that I just explained of grounding yourself before taking a walk. I think that's so helpful in many ways, because a lot of people are stressed when they come home from work. They have worked all day. Now they need to walk the dog, and they are stressed because they know the dog have maybe been alone all day. And it just helps so much to not take that stress with you out on the walk. And it helps you and it helps your dog. So the whole grounding thing, it's helping you to help your dog, basically.
And I should help with the
certain routine.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things I should just mention is that grounding and earthing is usually referred to, your grounding, that's like grounding your energy yourself with the breathing and indoors. But grounding and earthing is actually something that's science, basically, I guess, of people who are finding the health benefits and the energy benefits of putting our bare feet on earth. So a natural substrate, not concrete, not the inside your house, but there's actually, there's, magnetic energy. There's a lot of things that happen that help keep us grounded, really, is by putting our feet and our earth on the ground. And that's true for dogs as well. It is really significant, but also, so maybe, so the exercise is important in grounding ourselves, and that's important. But then what else, getting out into nature, obviously. But then like, as far as, we feed raw diet, I mean, what are the things that you see with feeding raw behaviorally that, how that translates or how that influences their behavior?
I mean, I think there are a lot of behavioral things too, but just to mention how I started, because I had my dog Piri, who's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but she was not on raw when I got her. She was from Portugal. I lived with her in Portugal, and she came with me home to Sweden. And she had a lot of problems. I mean, she loved to eat everything. She grew up on the streets, so probably why. She ate a lot of stuff when we were out walking, and her stomach couldn't cope with it. And I tried so many different kibbles and everything, and it just didn't work. And she had a lot of problems. And then a friend of mine recommended go just to raw feeding. And after a while, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. I thought it was complicated first. I was living in an apartment and not a big freezer and everything, but I decided to try, and it was just immediately changed. I mean, never ever she had problems again with her
Didn't have to look back. Yeah.
No, so that was how I started, more from a
she guided you there.
Yeah, she really did.
Yeah. But then I imagine your behavioral interest, you also started looking at like, what would a dog eat?
Exactly.
As a carnivore and as a canine species. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think there are so many, I mean, first of all, if you just give them kibbles, you never, and the same kibbles every day, you don't give them the opportunity to explore different food items, different materials, different
textures.
Exactly, textures, and I mean the whole part of bones and crunching and gnawing and tearing apart and exploring.
That's what they're meant to do. I mean, we buy all these stuffed toys, which are great, stuff is great. But we buy all these toys and we buy all these things that it's so funny because people don't see the connection sometimes, that the reason why their dog wants to de-stuff the toy is rooted in a natural behavior as a carnivore to kill the prey. And I do feel, while I make ground raw food products, SFRAW products, the grinds and the formulas, I've begun to explain to people that that's really for our benefit, but it's not for the dog's benefit. So we grind food for them, for us, and for convenience and for it to be easier. But the truth of the matter is I see more and more and more, and I don't know if it's because of the pandemic and dogs being inside, or I'm not really sure, but I see more and more dogs that I just see really need a big bone. They really need to eat off the bone. They really need, they're just hoovering up that food, and then it's gone, and then they're not satisfied. They're not getting what they need, and what they're meant to do is to eat off the bone. So trying to get more, and even whole prey, but not everybody's there. Not everybody's comfortable with that, of course. And not all dogs are, they need to be acclimated to it too sometimes, to understand that that's food and how to eat it. And once they do figure it out, they're usually it's goes crazy, but they love it. But doing things with their food to make sure that they are spending the time that they're supposed to, because in my experience that it has all these physical benefits, as far as making sure that they're able to digest better. It cleans their teeth, it's good for their gums, good for their jaws. There's all these meridians along their back. It stimulates, that's in qi, energy, as far as in Chinese medicine. So it stimulates that. It activates the whole posterior chain, which reduces stress. It stimulates the hormones that help with stress reduction, and happy hormones that make them feel more satisfied and happy. And so all of these things are super beneficial when they're able to eat an appropriate sized bone for them, and one that's been chosen for them that's right. And they could even go to eating almost all of their meals in hunks and pieces. And I like to plate meals and have things available for them to choose what items they want to eat and in what order. And I'm trying to I don't push for it at all, but I definitely like bring it up, because I don't think people think of that. It's hard enough for people to go from kibble to raw, but then to go from raw to this whole other level. But I do think that that's really important, that people even understand and know that that is a possibility, and that they can feed that way, and that it's you've been doing it for a long time, and you take it a whole other step further. So maybe talk a little bit about that. This is so cool how you incorporated that into your daily life. So
so when you talk, like when people talk, or when scientists or ethologists talk about enrichment, generally enrichment is about, actually it's complicated to describe maybe, but it's generally thought about,
because of the shortness of this video. We're trying to, I know we could go on for hours together.
we could. No, but usually it's common with people who work with zoo animals, for example, or other animals that are confined somehow, that okay, they live in this restricted area, this cage or other confinement, and they are bored, so you need to do something to help them not develop stereotypies, abnormal behaviors, and then you try to enrich the environment to fulfill different behavioral needs. And that's a common part, is trying to do food enrichment, for example. But it's not like just for zoo animals. I mean, enrichment for dogs is also so important. People just don't think about it. They are not aware of the concept. And even if we go for walks, of course, with dogs and they sniff here and there, it's there are so many behaviors that you can actually stimulate by enrichment. So for example, food enrichment, you mentioned it a little bit, that you serve different kinds of food. That's one type of enrichment, that you actually provide them food. Maybe they don't even like some of the food you give them. Maybe they are not supposed to eat it because maybe it's not poisonous, but it's not really something that they have to eat either. But then they get the chance to pick and choose, and like, okay, I'm gonna eat this, okay, this tastes strange, I'm gonna leave it. So if you prepare a plate and they leave some parts of it, that's just good, because then they have chosen not to eat that. So that's just part of normal behavior, basically.
Plus, it's so fun. I mean, there's two things I could do all day long: is watch animals eat and watch animals play.
Yeah.
Those two things I love, and so I could just watch all day long. So it's really fun to you feed these plated meals to your animals, or how you feed your animals. We'll hopefully show a video for that soon. You're able to like really like learn. Like I've learned that Groovy really likes to eat her bones as dessert, and I found that a lot of dogs like to eat their bones for dessert.
I think that's so natural, because if you think about how they and I mean, you cannot start eating the bones
inside.
on a whole no.
You have to eat the outside first.
And I think a lot of dogs, even if you give kibbles, you can still give them something to chew on afterwards. I mean, that part you can still give them.
Such an important part of being a dog, you know, and a part of them.
And one thing that we didn't mention, but I think also is so important with the raw, like eating bones, they're not just eating with the mouth, they're using their paws as well.
Yeah.
Hi, Mara. Hi. Mara wants to be in the video as well.
I know. And like I said before, I'm actually, my computer is situated on top of Bones's crate, and Bones is here. She's in the meeting here. My kitty.
We'll see if I will have to go and let Mara.
But maybe, do you want to show the video? Maybe see that? That would be great.
I will show the video. So what I do is that, okay, I'm gonna just let Mara in.
Okay.
So she doesn't continue barking.
Yeah. She's asked politely.
Oh, okay, she didn't want to be in the video though. Hi.
It's Mom, I'm home.
Yeah, exactly.
And you guys it's evening for you, so it's your evening routine and ready for bed. So
at least for Lucas, our little son. Yeah. So what we usually do is, or I usually do at least once a week, but sometimes more often, is that I take all of the food or part of the food out on a walk, and then I hide it in nature. So I'll let the dog stay, and then I just go walk around and hide it, and then they can search for it. So it's not just the eating part, it's actually first searching for food. So I was thinking I could just share a video when Akqunak is, it's my Alaskan Malamute, who is doing a food search.
Yeah. And if you wanted to go to the full screen, you could use that little bottom right hand arrow.
Yeah, it's recorded in the wrong
got it,
angle. So anyways, you will see.
So this is where you walk here pretty much every day.
This is just like 10 minutes from my house, walking.
And so one of the things, if people wanted to do this with their dogs in a more highly populated area like San Francisco, that you may not even be able to do this because there's so many dogs around. But to just kind of keep this in mind, even at home. Like, for example, with my cats, I always recommend people, oh, look. I always recommend people play with their cats, give a big hunting session where they're like hunting for something. And then when they're done hunting, then they get the meal. So it's like the reward at the end. And also their body gets, their metabolism changes, their pH change. Oh, look. Sorry. So allowing them to hunt for their food is so important, because that's a big part of physiologically their digestion, their immune system, their metabolism, their hormones, all of these things. But it also really engages them with their food in a way that they're more interested in it. Yeah. Look at this.
I mean, even if you live, I mean, you can even do part of this. I mean, here he has to challenge his physical body as well, because it's a bit slippery, and he has to balance, and so it's also like exercise for his whole body, and he needs to think and have
his mind,
control.
Problem solving.
Yeah. And he's not off leash because according to legislation you need to have them on leash this part of the year, because there are so many animals with
got it. Are they newborns? Oh, yeah, are they breeding little baby animals?
Yeah, they're babies in the forest now. Yes, what I was going to say is that, I mean, I understand that this could be difficult to do outside, depending on, I mean, when I lived in California, I actually did it in parks, just in a small area, not big as this, but just a tiny area. I just did hide some food items, so my dog could do some searching. You can do it with treats as well.
And he's also like not concerned. He doesn't seem stressed by somebody maybe coming and taking his food.
No.
You know, like he's not, this is clearly his body language and everything looking about his demeanor. He's interested and engaged, but relaxed. He's not stressed about it. He's not like, oh my gosh, someone's, you know, like resource guarding would be a behavior that you might see. That,
and you should be aware of that if you do it in an area with a lot of dogs. So I would prefer maybe you do it in an area where there are no dogs at the moment where you do it. So to avoid the whole resource guarding part.
And even in your house, you could do this.
Yeah, exactly. You could, I mean, if you feed raw, you might not want to put the food in the bed or something, but I mean, you can put it on small plates and in another room, just try to hide it and give them a chance to search for it. And some dogs are they eat very fast, and they might get frustrated if they have to search for the food. So then you could actually give them some part of their meal on a plate first, so that they, you know, eat a little bit first, and then they can go searching, so they don't get stressed about it.
Do you think that part. Oh, good boy. And while this is happening, we can't hear the sound. Are you encouraging him, or are you just allowing?
No, I'm rewarding every now and then, but not all the time. I'm quiet, and I prefer to be quiet because I just want him to work in his own pace and not like interrupt. So just to let him do his thing. I think that sometimes we just, you know, interrupt too much because people are so stressed that the dog doesn't find the treat immediately. So instead of just waiting and letting the dog work, we're trying to, oh, look here, it's here, over here. But just be quiet and see what happens, because they learn so fast to just look at us and be like, okay, tell me where it is. But that's not working. That's asking for help.
I mean, that is connecting in some way, but you know, what we're hoping here is to have that engagement with their meal, so that they, because a big part of what dogs do if they were not living with us would be scavenging, hunting. Most of their day would be spent doing the activities that you saw in the video. And so being able to be outside, like when you, maybe just, we were talking too about if you have more footage about just a walk, and showing what things you do that might be different than what most people are used to doing on a walk, and how you're allowing their natural behaviors to develop in a safe way. And then also, you know, how you can just bring more nature into your dog's life, you know, how to bring more of this kind of behavior and this kind of experiences in their life daily, because it does really change their immune system, honestly, and it makes them healthier longer. I mean, I know that you've worked with a lot of, your specialty is working with animals in confinement.
Yeah.
And so I imagine that you've noticed too that like their immune systems and their longevity, it's not just their happiness in that moment, but it's more about their long-term survival and wellness is very much influenced by those happy moments that they have every day. It's accumulation of that.
This is just a walk. We're not actually doing something special. We're just taking a short walk. But what I was thinking about your question earlier, what I would recommend people to do. Something I also find very important that connects also to the dog's natural behavior is to actually let the dog decide where to walk every now and then, because it's so common that we decide, okay, I'm going to take a walk for 20 minutes and I'm going to take this route because that route takes 20 minutes. But what if the dog wants to go another way? I mean, just some every now and then, just let the dog choose wherever it wants to go. And when they sniff, if they want to stay still and sniff for 5 minutes, I mean, let them do that.
Let them do that. Oh my
Because
goodness.
it's so important.
It's so important. I mean, that
Yeah.
is such a critical sense for a dog. And especially with dogs that age, sometimes people get a little frustrated or maybe sad, I'm not sure. But as their dogs age, their world gets a little smaller and smaller because they can't go as far, which is natural. That's part of nature.
Yeah.
That sentience. And we just eventually things sort of close around a little bit more and we become a little smaller and as things sort of dim, the twilight years. So one of the things that they may not be able to enjoy is they can't see as well, and they can't hear as well, they can't walk as well, but that sense of smell almost always lingers all to the very end.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge sense for them, and them just taking a really slow walk where you have to just be really patient and just let them sit and smell on something for however long they need to do it. That's so important because that's their joy. That's their, it's so important. I mean, I don't know if you have more to contribute to that. Like, is there any like studies or research that's been done that have explained about what that does for a dog or what that means for a dog, or any information that you have about the sniffing with dogs?
Well, there are probably studies. I actually don't have a study on my mind that has looked into that. But I mean, just knowing about dog behavior and natural behaviors, it's just such an important part of their daily life. And I think that I know that there are a lot of training methods where restricting their sniffing is part of training. And I think that's just disconnecting us, because if you all the time try to prevent the dog from sniffing, you're preventing the dog from being a dog, basically. And that's not building a good relationship. I mean, I think you should instead be interested, like, why is the dog sniffing so much? What is the dog sniffing? I mean, try to be interested in the dog. Why do you have a dog? You have to ask yourself, why do you have a dog? What can you provide the dog with? How can you fulfill their needs? Because you decided, no one just put a dog in your house. You decided to get a dog. So you have a responsibility as well to fulfill their needs. You're the person who can actually learn about dog behavior.
Yeah, and it's so, I mean, I was gonna say, it's such a gift to have the dog teach you. And maybe you find a new place and maybe you learn new things about your dog or new things about yourself, which I think.
And I know that a lot of people could be like, well, sometimes I'm in a hurry. Of course you are.
Oh,
and
sure.
I think
there's life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always have a signal telling the dog, okay. For example, you can use a different color saying or a different harness saying that, okay, when you wear this, we're not out walking. It's just transportation. Right. We're not exploring the world. We're transporting. We're going to the car or we're going to the bus or wherever. It's not a sniff walk.
Yeah.
You can always do that. That's fair. Just give the dog several times a day a good walk where they can sniff around and explore. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
And have the patience to wait. I don't know why a lot of people get so stressed when the dog is standing still sniffing. I think that tells something more about us than the dog.
Yeah, I know.
It's so much about movement. People don't like to be still. A lot of people don't like to be still.
Well, I actually don't. I struggle with that. I like to move, but I don't. But if my dog's sniffing, I don't mind. I let them, because that's their walk, Mm-hmm. But it overrides my need to keep moving constantly.
Yeah, but it's common. It's very common.
But I think too. Where I was going to go with that, but I was going to say that, they can understand that sometimes, like you said, that there's different modes for the walk. Like maybe sometimes it's this kind of walk and that kind of walk, where they get to do more sniffing, but that sniffing is so important. You're right.
And then, sometimes they find so interesting things, when you just follow them, you just realize that, oh, here's a new path, or here's some water he needed to drink, or whatever. It was a very warm day, so it was really Yeah.
It's very beautiful there. So, one of the things that you do is you do an evening walk, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that can change just about the health. Like this isn't all about behavior. It's interesting because it is totally related, because behavior and health are just, there's no, you can't disconnect them. They are
Yeah.
interrelated, whether you want it to be or not. And oh, I know what I was going to say before is that people say, oh, well, I need to get my dog training. And I'm like, well, you're training them every moment you're interacting with them.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
always, they're always learning from us because they're so smart and they're so seeking and they want to learn and engage. And, and there's also maybe sometimes the other thing. So you're always teaching them one way or another, like one thing or the other, whatever you're doing with them, you're teaching them
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
That's always happening. And then two, maybe the people get stressed because they feel like their dog, this is their moment to get their dogs exercising.
Exactly.
And the
Yeah.
dog really, if they have a young fit dog, that the dog has to get out and get their yayas out and run. Now, what is your take on that? Like, do you think that a tired dog is a good dog? And that, maybe if people don't understand that there's also like having mental exercises can be something that can also be tiring for a dog.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I do
I have a
think that,
lot of things to say about that.
yeah, I was going to say, you
Of
probably
course.
do. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
think it's so important to distinguish between being tired in a good way and being exhausted and being stressed. Because, for example, just being home alone for the whole day and then going to the beach, running after a frisbee or a ball for 30 minutes and then going back home. I think that, I mean, of course, dogs need to run and get a lot of energy out of their bodies. But that's also, we need to be aware that chasing is also part of hunting. So it builds up a lot of energy chasing something, because if you're just chasing a ball, you're not actually chasing a prey. You're not getting the end part of the behavior. So it's actually getting prepared to kill a prey. If you go back to looking at the wolf, they are not wolves, they are domestic dogs, but it's important to just realize that, because sometimes people get frustrated that I've been on the beach for 30 minutes and they are still not tired. Well, if maybe you take some treats with you and let them search for treats for a while. Like here, in the video, I do a small stop in the end of the walk and I just hide some treats. It's just a few of them. I just put on a tree. It's dried lung. So I just put them a little bit here and there and just let him sniff for a while. It's not a big exercise or anything. It's just some mental activity for him.
yeah.
And I think if you just do a little bit of that, so if you just have half an hour, well, do 20 minutes exercise for the
They
body.
do need
And then,
exercise. I'm
yeah,
not
they
going to
do
say
need,
they
of
need it.
course.
They absolutely,
They
all
absolutely
our
need it.
bodies are meant to move,
Yeah,
and we do need to
but
move. Yeah.
put 10 minutes on the mental part as well.
Yeah.
If you have food, give them food that they can search for, or if you take treats, give them some treats that they can look for in the grass or on the beach or in your apartment or house or whatever.
Or play games. You
Yeah.
can play games with them. Some people like tricks.
Yeah.
I don't teach tricks to my dogs, but some people really like that,
Yeah.
and they like to, and the dogs like it too. So if your dog's
Mm-hmm.
having fun doing that and that's something you guys enjoy together,
Yeah.
learning a new behavior, like together,
Mm-hmm.
like seeing how long you can walk away while they sit, and, like
Yeah.
seeing how, just kind of giving them things to learn and new things to engage in. That's
Yeah.
always nice. Yeah.
And
But
I
one
think
other thing.
also, for example, if your dog has been running a lot, also spend some minutes just to uh, come down in energy as well, because you build up a lot of energy when running. So just, sit for a while and just breathe together. It's also something that's giving a lot to the whole relationship. If you just let the dog, like I said before, be present, be there with your dog, and just like, whew, now we've been running, now we're just going to relax for a while and then we're going back home. So
Yeah.
you have that routine of giving them the chance to be in balance.
Yeah. So the one thing that we're learning a lot about, and this might be hopefully the last, I know you need to get going, the last topic, but your evening walks, there's something about, we're learning more and more about our circadian rhythms and our hormone levels, particularly melatonin, and how that relates to our immune system and our sleep, which also dictates a big part of our immune system and our immunity. And to make a healthier dog that lives longer, all of these things that you're talking about will help. But one of the things that that are now new information is coming out, or I don't know if it's that new, but it's becoming more promoted, is that right at dawn and right at dusk, if we can all have exposure to the natural light with our eyes, and also to be outside at that time for about 20 or 30 minutes. It used to say 10 minutes, now they're saying 20 or 30 minutes, but I guess whatever time you can to be exposed to the early morning daylight, and then also to be exposed at the evening light while the sun is setting. And then after the sun sets, then to also change your light in your house to be a warm, like candlelight or the Himalayan salt lights, or a red toned light, and lower lights, because that really, the blue lights from our phones and our TVs and our all those devices are very stimulating, but not in a very healthy way. And that actually really impacts our dog's health. I've seen dogs that it have horrible itching and skin problems that can actually be resolved by doing these things, getting out into nature every day, grounding, earthing, exposure to the daylight and exposure to the sunset, and then also reducing the blue lights in the home at night. That doesn't only impact us, but it impacts their health. And then that impacts all of our health. If those dogs are up all night itching, then no one's getting any sleep. So if you're able to like help them with that, these are things people don't necessarily think about. But I like that you're doing this evening walk with your and your baby usually is with you too.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a nice family walk. And it really, the timing of that walk, most of us, you fit it in when you can, of course, but if you have an opportunity to spend 10 or 15 minutes outdoors first thing in the morning when the sun comes up, and then just to do another 10 minutes in the evening right before the sun goes down, and then to change the character and the quality of the lighting that you're exposed to after dark, for you and your animals, it can really make a big difference in your long-term health.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you, Elin. I'm so happy you came on and we did the show. Finally, we did it.
Finally.
I know,
And
totally.
I forgot to show the picture. I just want to show a last picture because
That's great.
just
Be a nice wrapping up end.
yeah, just to show, because little Mara here that was not in the video, but she's also living here with us, and I forgot to tell you that, but she came with us home from California.
I remember. Yeah. Yeah. So she's from here.
Yes.
Yeah. And she's adapted really well there.
Yeah, she loves the nature.
So one of the things I had referred to or talked about a little bit was your wonderful Instagram account. So where can people find you? And if they have more questions and they want to follow up or ask about what work you do you do consultations with people, or how do you?
I do, definitely. And I'm thinking, I mean, if someone would like to do consultation, of course, it would be nice to go to California every now and then, but I could also do like Zoom consultations and on phone. But if you want to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, it's Dogveda. So Dogveda.
Great.
And then so there you can find my contact.
Are you on Facebook too, or just
Facebook as well? No, both. I'm most active on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm in both.
Well, great.
So
Thank you so
I'm
much.
happy to hear from you.
Yeah, me
thank
too.
you for inviting me. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
I would love to. I think there's a lot of topics we can explore.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Elin, and have a
Thank
beautiful evening. Say hello to Robert for me and give the dogs a baby. Baby, I haven't got to meet yet, but yeah, everyone hugs.
Yeah, he can say hi now if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Hi, come. Oh, he's ready for bed. Hi.
Yeah, we could do a whole topic about raising children with dogs.
Yeah, we could. That would be fun.
Yeah, there's some really great interactions you've had. Hello.
Hi. You don't hear anything.
Does he? Yeah, he can't.
Now you can hear. Hi.
Hi.
Oh,
Oh, how old is he now?
he is 16 months.
Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
he's
It's
growing.
beautiful, Elin.